sometimes people say, well, you took the cuts and you're still standing, you must be fine. It's the things they don't see. They don't see the larger classes necessarily. They don't see the permanent faculty we haven't been able to hire. They don't see the research dollars that we could have had we added the faculty that we were entitled to by the funding formula. We lost about 170 faculty members that we never hired because of the budget reductions, and about 120 staff. They don't necessarily see the long lines for financial aid, or they don't. There are so many things the average person would not see as a result of the budget cuts because they drive by and they see the doors are still open. So it's a serious situation. We've been able to manage it. We knew this was coming 3 or 4 years ago, and we stopped hiring. And we just simply held the line on adding new people. I felt it was immoral to hire a person if we knew that a year later we'd have to lay them off. And that was the situation we were in. So we didn't do that. The cut we took this year was $33.5 million, about 16% of our appropriation. But we want to remember that that cut, there was other cuts that came prior to that took us up over $50 million in continuing funds and millions of dollars in one-time funds. And so we had to deal with that. A tuition increase this year of 6.5% is going to bring back about $6.7 million of that 33.5. So I don't think anybody expects or realizes maybe that the hole created was so large. And we were already one of the least funded institutions in the UNC system before this started. We've tried to keep tuition within some sense of balance. We know we would never get a 30 or 40% increase in tuition to get back all that we lost, but we have to get something back, and we have to rededicate some of it to financial aid. So in our particular case, we've tried to keep tuition just as low as we can, and in fact, we're still in the lowest 25th percentile of our peer institutions. At the end of next year, or at the beginning of next year, when the tuition increases go into effect, the total bill, tuition, fees, debt service, everything is going to be about $5,800. And if you look around the country, that's a bargain. I think if you go back to the early days of Charlotte College and the founding of the Charlotte Center and then the emergence of the two-year college, and the leadership provided by Bonnie Cohn, you have to just take great inspiration in where education can take people. And there were a lot of veterans coming off of World War II who knew they needed education. They were going to go out into the workforce, and Charlotte College provided them that opportunity. And that hasn't abated at all. In fact, if you look at the demand for higher education right now, it's never been higher. If you look at the predictions about what kinds of educational backgrounds will be needed in the next couple of decades, you'd have to say the future of higher education is extremely bright. What isn't bright is a very clear strategy for supporting it. And the notion of a public education, which for many years meant that people would go to school with no tuition or very little tuition and no debt, has now been turned a little bit on its head, so that it's almost a user fee. Now, it's nowhere close to that yet in North Carolina, because in our system, the state pays about 2/3 of the cost of an undergraduate education. But in some states, it's getting closer to 50-50, and students are being paid, expected to pay a much higher percentage of the cost of their education. I would hate to see us get any higher, but I don't yet see a strategy for getting us any lower.